link, but
I don't know. Mounts are a subclassification of summons. Unlike summons, they are immune to control. Right, that's not what I was trying to put there. I was trying to put the mobility. Type of charge which can be consumed to enable free active movement between adjacent rows. We're gonna have to.
I have an idea for a classic Kirby.
What's your idea?
You would summon summons for the enemy team, and they're like really helpful summons, and they help people. And that's the only way you can summon them. But then you take them from the enemy and use them for yourself.
Interesting.
Where you generate resources for the enemy, and then you take those resources for your own devious needs.
Holy shit, Super Gordon! 4 bachelors and $185,000 are gone.
What?
Just talked to Kickstarter. Elysian Shadows said that sorry for being gone a couple of weeks. We couldn't afford the internet. Wow. They they're like their $185,000 2D RPG that they were making um, in the same house ended up going down because they couldn't afford internet. Or like it's not gone or anything, but they couldn't. People are mailing them mac and cheese. Wish someone would mail us mac and cheese.
Like, comment, subscribe, mail, mac and cheese. P.O. Box 1234, Louisiana Street. We're not actually in Louisiana.
Can be consumed to enable free active movement between rows. Can be consumed to move as a free active. I think that's the simplest. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely YouTube them, Super Gordon. Thank you. What do you think?
Of the mobility charge thing?
Yeah.
So we're writing the green text in pretty much as what has to pop up when you hover
Yeah.
over the. Okay, it's good.
Yep. I'm just working on reducing it even more from what I said before. Like it used to say, a type of charge which can be consumed to enable free active movement between adjacent rows. But I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. As long as players understand that movement means you can only move one row at a time.
Yeah, but that'll be something they learn by that point, kind
Yeah.
of, because it'll go through what the basic actions are, or describe them. Charge. So how do we describe charges?
Do you have to?
Yeah, because stacks and charges are different.
Well, charges just kind of
Do
sit on your
not.
character.
Yeah, I said they were a vessel for buffs and debuffs. A
Well,
buff
a lot of
or
times they're like stored abilities.
a buff, debuff, or stored ability, which does not stack. Good?
Can we need to do all the tutorial voice acting?
There's no voice acting.
Mobility charge!
There's no voice acting. Yeah, no
We
problem
need
to
to hire him to make the noises.
We'll Yeah, I guess we could, but like I kind of like I want the boops. Added here. Begin battle mounted. Hello.
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 Hey.
Good evening.
Mount.
Welcome to the party.
What's the party like today?
Well, the party
Well-
is taking all of the human abilities and reducing them to the most simplistic description possible.
I didn't know we were doing that. I was taking all my clothes off.
Uh,
Well, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, very. I can understand how you'd be
I
embarrassed.
mean, I pretty much just assume that it's constantly what you're doing because I've never seen a camera on you. But
Well, I mean that's true too, but being caught in the act is different.
yeah, I imagine it's more erotic that way.
I like the thrill.
Of being caught by audio.
Yeah.
Very specific fetish.
The eye of the ear.
Oh yeah.
Mounts are a subclassification of summons. Unlike summons, they are immune to control effects and do not occupy summon spaces. Mounts are tethered. Yeah, that's nuts, Super Gordon. It's absolutely nuts. Good for them. I don't know. I don't know how we're
Wait,
gonna.
do we even have to call them out summons, really? Like, they don't operate as summons at all, really. I mean, it was just kind of a word to connect it to an existing word, I guess.
So you may call another in as a free active. Who is who?
Who's some people making RPG for the sake of RPG getting sent toilet paper and mac and cheese?
These guys.
Dionysus.
Like, the next generation of 2D something something.
Mount dies in battle, you may call in another as a
Oh,
free
Elysian Shadows. I remember them.
mount. Mounts are immune to control effects, and hey, to infinity and beyond. Welcome back. Mounts are immune to control effects and move when you move, rather than saying tethered. And move with take movement actions with you. Move with you.
Is there any way that we can make players kind of understand that, like, the mount is just an extension of your player?
Other than what we've already got.
Let me take a look at
Well,
what
you
people are writing.
You wouldn't have to say move with you if it was clear that this was already attached to you.
But that's not in like the ability text. It's in the hover text.
That's in the hover text. Okay, I gotcha. Never mind.
Mounts are immune to control effects and move with you. Period. Yeah, okay, well that gets rid of needing to put all of that. They have their own
they make act or
mounts are immune to control effects and move with you. Each mount has its own abilities and passives, comma, but will share your turn. Each mount has its own abilities and passives, period, but share. Take. Each mount has its own abilities and passives, but mounts. Fuck.
Are you having trouble trying to make it sound like that doesn't consume their actions when their mount takes actions?
During your. Each mount has its own abilities, passives, and actions, which they can use during your turn.
In addition to your
Which
ability.
they can use during your turn.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, what I said doesn't need to be said.
During your combat phase. Combat cycle. Which can be used. David, read through these and let us know if any of this is confusing to you.
Where in the world of the game is this going to be placed? Like, how informed am I as a reader once this stuff comes up?
When you hover over your ability button, like Outride, for instance,
that stuff.
This first white section pops up. Things in green text are hover links that you can hover over to get the darker green text below. Things in purple text will appear when you click on the purple text to describe fully what the ability does whenever it changes. But specifically for Severender, on each of the rows that you would be on, like let's say you're on the front row, if you're on the front row, this description of the ability appears. If you're on the middle row description appears.
Okay, so they're conditional statements.
They're conditional statements that vary depending on which row you are on. Instead of having to render all of the information about the ability, we just have it change depending on the row you're on.
That's smart. Okay, I'll look at this. Attack turn, target enemy in range, gain a mobility charge. Is this assuming that we're somehow visually showing the player what the range is?
You will know your character's range.
You won't know it?
You will know your character's range.
Oh, okay. Okay, so, I mean, Outright is like the most simple thing.
It's very...
mobility charge, mobility charge can be consumed to move as free active charge. Buff, debuff, or stored ability which does not stack. Which will make more sense once I know what a stack looks like in our game. I mean, I know hypothetically, but I think those make sense. Surrender, move to the front row, attack target enemy in range. Yeah, disability skills movement. Move to front row, gain +1 range.
Yes, I like that one. To Infinity and Beyond. Very cute.
Each others. Oh, that's the one video. Surrounded by its own abilities. Says legends. Immune is capitalized for some reason.
Immune
That's
is
just a
like
grammar thing.
an effect. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's its own keyword.
Oh, okay.
I'm just putting that in to remind myself that like certain things like stack may need to be keyworded so that if you like, let's say I hover over charge and then I see stack and I don't know what that means, I just hover over stack and now I know what it means. But I don't know if like how many of those we want to do, like how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I mean, I think the easiest way to figure out is once people start playing how easily confused they are, and
Yeah.
like I think the best way is to force them to learn it versus having to depend on like an interactive wiki.
Right. I agree.
I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be too extensive, or the player will just be like, "Oh, this is like kind of like a tabletop game where I need the book in order to figure out what happens on the board."
The industry standard, like League of Legends, for instance, which I had pulled up earlier. Let me see if I can just get a history for that. History. Tabs. Here. Like, this is how much ability text players are willing to read in a MOBA, which is much faster paced than our game.
Okay. It's about normal.
Right.
About what I thought it would be.
So, I think ours
A
are
couple sentences.
less than that at the moment.
Yeah.
What we do in order to have simplicity on like the learning what the ability does front is just take the text and separate it out, like the complexity, separate the complexity out from the ability itself. JJ and I were talking about a number of ways in which we could visually represent like the fact that, and ignore the cavalier and mount image. Actually, look at it first, then ignore it. Here's the cavalier,
Okay.
here's his mount. Since they take a turn with one another, if you want to control one of them, you would click on this little arrow thing and it would switch the mount's portrait behind the cavaliers. And now it's clear I'm playing as the cavalier. And that'll be like highlighted.
Yeah.
And things like your mount summoning itself in at the very beginning of battle, that's stuff that like you don't have to tell the player because it'll happen. When their mount dies, like being able to resummon in another mount as a free active. Technically, we don't have to say that, but it's nice for them to know that if their mount dies, they're getting one back.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's all pretty good, but like, from someone who's been like dealing with this game forever, I think the best way to judge it would be for someone who doesn't know what we're talking about to look at it.
Sure. Hey, stream followers. Okay, well, this is a good start. JJ, are you okay with dropping this for a little bit and coming back to it later?
I'll drop it like it's hot.
Okay, good. And then I'm going to need a thing for each mount in this mount section.
My hands were developing blisters anyways.
Yeah, because it was so hot that you had to drop it.
Yeah.
Bolthus. Garcelle. Okay, so David, a few things to talk about to start with.
Okay.
The first thing that we need to do, did you get a chance to watch that TED Talk?
No.
Okay, watch that TED Talk. You can get a chance. Hey, Mr. Cryptic, welcome back.
Right.
What we need to do is create a stump speech that doesn't say we're better than other games in our genre. For whatever reason. We need to create a stump speech which, God, what's the term? Which repositions us. So repositioning is to use an example from the TED Talk. Um, I don't know if you've heard of Beck's beer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Beck's beer was the most popular beer in Germany in the 1970s, but it had abysmal sales in the United States. There was another German beer company that was doing really well in the United States. I think it was like Holzweiser or something. I don't know. Something that we don't really know about now or hear about at all. But they had a great market here, and Beck's was trying to take their market, but they couldn't just say, like, we're better than this beer. So instead, what they did is they created an ad that says, "You've drank the most popular German beer in America. Now drink the most popular German beer in Germany." So they took the authenticity of the other beer away. They repositioned themselves as the most authentic German beer. So what we'll
Yeah.
be looking to do with our stump speech, if we can, is reposition ourselves as being, uh, in some way, a more authentic RPG experience than other RPGs that are around. If we're selling ourselves, that's what I'd like to do. What I've landed upon as being things that differentiate our game is that we have linked combat and narrative, which I think is important, and we have archetype avoidance. Um, if you want to throw combat being a function of character change and progression into the linked combat and narrative thing, then we can. Um, but it's really hard to tell that story in a couple of sentences. Uh, what I've tried to do is say that RPGs needed archetypes when they first came around because they had to ground players in unfamiliar systems. Um, yeah, it's from the video you sent me to Infinity and Beyond, um, the TED Talk. So, what I've tried to do is just brainstorm out a few things about how we're avoiding those archetypes and trying to get closer to actual characterizations, uh,
Okay.
which would be a very strong selling point, but would also be something that we'd have to like constantly be vigilant about on the narrative front. Um,
Well, that's harder with this new version of the demo. I'm working on it. Oh,
that
actually, I guess I'm avoiding some of the archetypes. It's just a little. It's much harder now that I only have like a very limited cast.
right.
But yeah.
So I wanted to run it by you, and I wanted to work on it with you because I don't think I'm going to be able to do it on my own.
Okay.
The stump speech thing,
Um.
and we don't have to do that now, but I
No.
thought I'd tell you about it now. Um,
Okay. Well, what are your other things that you would like to talk about? Because I think stump speech is important.
it's
Um.
very important.
And I think it's good that you involve me in some way, and maybe I can help. I don't know. I don't usually think about marketing, but maybe they have some words.
Um, I had an idea about an orc who's a face talker. Like you've met people who talk up in your face and have no regard for your personal space, right?
This is a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
Seinfeld episode. But the thing about characters in video games is they rarely grab that part of reality and take it in. Like the comedy of everyday encounters with other people, as characterization, something that video games generally choose to avoid. Um, Now I was thinking about how our dialogue system, where characters are talking at one another from across the screen, would be able to communicate things like that. For example, if someone is a face talker, instead of being on their side of the screen like they should be, they'll start on their side of the screen and then get really close up to the other character and be talking right up in their face. And that's something that the script would afford for, because they're talking, and both the player and who is probably playing the character, like the stationary perspective point, the one that you're familiar with, isn't going to know that this orc is a face talker until he becomes one, in the same way that it would happen in a regular social encounter. Um, the trick will be taking those little, like, tiny characterization cues that we can throw in there and making them like a larger part of how that character interacts with the universe as a whole and with their culture as a whole. Um,
You know, would be really sort of charming, I guess would be the word, is you know how Battle Block Theater does their cutscenes,
mhm.
where it's like a little puppet show?
Yeah,
Maybe like instead of just having static images, the like characters are like little paper cutouts on like popsicle sticks, and like to have one of them move over, one just kind of like bounces up and down on his popsicle stick to go to the other guy,
it
or
would be.
like a goblin shows up and he's like human, then like nine other goblins pop up behind him on like little paper cutout doll
It would be
puppets.
really cute, but we'd have to involve Frank to like a much greater degree than we can currently afford to.
Mhm.
I mean, stuff that we've talked about in the past was that like we'd have some limited animation on character portraits, but there's none specifically planned for the most recent version of the demo as it is now.
I think that there's going to be mouth movement and eye blinking in the same way that there would be in Fire Emblem,
Okay.
because those are afforded for. But
Like
this,
I think just moving them around and like messing with scale is like a fine way to get a little bit more subtlety out of how we can mess with them.
okay,
So I don't think your idea is bad or anything, but uh,
the
I know we don't have any goblins.
no, like, but the readability, even if it's not an orc or a goblin, if it's a human character, that
Yeah.
like starting to think about characters in that way when you're meeting them first, like first impressions bases basis on a first impressions basis, when you're meeting someone with the Law Strider, how are they postured differently than other characters, like other NPCs you've come up against in the past? Like, are they turned away from the player when you first meet them in the dialogue screen? Does that signal something to you? Um, are they with other people when you first meet them? That's important. Are they isolated? Do they talk to you at all when you first meet them? You know? Because I think now that we've got a chance to look at the demo as like a very small thing, we have a much better chance of controlling all of our first impressions. And some of the stuff
Uh,
that we can do to pay off small moments like that wouldn't take any resources at all. Like flipping a model is super easy, and
yeah.
moving it across the screen is super easy too.
Yeah.
Um, so for the characters that we're choosing to include in the demo, I think there should be a discussion about how